Today we've got a story about how one poster gets pro-revenge on a 75-year-old building manager. We'll get into that one shortly, but first, exchange students' host family got what they deserved. Just over 20 years ago, when I attended high school, we had a Japanese exchange student join our class. She was very lovely, kind, spoke good English, and generally a lovely person to be around. The type of girl that makes you smile when you speak to her because of her sunny disposition. I became good friends with her, and over the next few months, she came to my house quite a bit to have dinner with my family, and they got to know and love her like I did. After a little while, I noticed her not being her normal, happy self. I put it down to the fact that she was missing her family and tried to cheer her up the best I could. One day, however, it all became too much for her, and she broke down crying in front of my mom, dad, and I. She explained that her host family were not very nice to her, and that she thought they had been stealing stuff from her room. It wasn't anything of great value that was being stolen, however, it was the principle, and the fact that despite it being wrong, they were making her feel unsettled and sad. After all, she was supposed to trust this family. When she had asked them about the missing items, they had all laughed in her face and told her she was going crazy, and that they hadn't taken anything. The next morning, she woke up to empty chocolate wrappers pushed under her bedroom door. At first, she was confused, but then she checked her things for the chocolate she had bought to take back to her family and realized that it was gone. Over the next few days, she replaced the chocolate and the same thing happened. Empty wrappers were pushed under her bedroom door. This happened 4 times in total before she eventually broke down crying to me and my parents. We consoled her, and my dad told her not to worry as he had a plan. My dad left the house and returned about half an hour later with some laxative chocolate, X-Lax, that he had been to buy at the pharmacy. He explained to my friend what it was and told her to take the chocolate that she had bought for her family out of the wrappers and then put the laxative chocolate inside the wrappers. Later that evening, she returned to her host family's house to set her plan in motion. Nothing happened that evening. The chocolate remained where it was. The same for the second night. After 3 nights, my friend woke up to see the empty chocolate wrappers pushed under her bedroom door. Sure enough, someone had stolen them. But the question remained, who? This question was quickly answered when my friend saw the youngest teenage daughter of the host family rush into the bathroom and, after a while, come out to tell her mom that she didn't feel very well and had a tummy ache. My friend was pleased to see that the girl was in and out of the bathroom time and time again, and laughed to herself each time she saw her rushing there. She didn't expect the girl to suspect it was anything to do with the chocolate, but the amusement of seeing her punished for her crimes was enough for her. The girl didn't stop having trouble with her bowels for over 24 hours. Yes, X-Lax is a classic prank to play on people that you want to, in a sense, harmlessly get back at. As far as I know, it doesn't cause any real health complications, so yeah, I don't see any harm on, putting them on the crapper for 24 hours. That's what she gets for stealing the chocolate. NDA replied, I had a somewhat similar situation when I studied abroad in high school about 25 years ago, except my host parents were lovely. It was my younger host brothers that made my life heck. They were very good at only doing things when their parents weren't there, and I, being young and timid, figured I must be doing something wrong to make them hate me, so I didn't tell my parents and just tried to get them to like me. After months and months, I finally did tell them, and my brother said that I had been being mean to them. It was 2 to 1, and they're actual children versus a host student, so they believed their kids. I don't blame them for that. I eventually switched host families and wished I had months sooner. Just a few years ago, I met up with my host parents when they were in the US, and they mentioned a few things that I didn't know at the time. For example, my host father had recently lost his job, and they had just had to downsize into a tiny apartment right before I arrived, and it really affected all of their lives. The details they told me made me understand a little better what was going on with my host brothers, even though I have no interest in ever seeing them again. I don't regret my year abroad, but they definitely made it very challenging. Also, hi there everybody, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these pro-revenge videos, it would be amazing if you liked the video or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, hotel screwed me over, so I actively discouraged tourists from booking there. I had a bad experience with a particular hotel that's part of a larger chain. They lost my reservation, couldn't give me the room I had reserved, gave me a lesser room, charged my credit card twice, and at the previous rate, when the rate on that day was cheaper. I managed to get one of the charges dropped, but I'm still salty about having to overpay for a crappy room. And their corporate customer service was even worse. I work in a tourist-adjacent position, and at least once a week, I'm asked for recommendations about local accommodations. We have a list, and I make a point to tell them not to book at the one I loathe. I have no intention of ever stopping. Yes, it's petty, and yes, it gives me great satisfaction every time. There's nothing wrong with shouting from the rooftops anytime an organization treats you poorly because, if nothing else, you're keeping other people from having to go through what you're going through, and best case scenario, there are consequences that face said organization, and they either change their ways or they get shut down. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. WasteCurve994 replied, "Seriously, a while ago I bought a custom couch. They screwed up everything and were 6 months late. I told them to give me a discount or it would be painful. They didn't listen. What I posted on every site cost them 10 times what it would have cost them in a refund." Our next story is Lunch Revenge. In 7th grade, I stored my lunch in my band cubby as my locker was too far away. My lunch was not at all special. A lot of lunch meat on wheat bread with processed cheese slices, an apple, and a granola bar. But it was the only food I had until I got home at 6 p.m., and I was too poor to have lunch money. Some jackwagon started stealing my lunch. After 3 days of this, I made a special lunch just for them. A PB&J with a rubber glove in the middle and sand in the PB, and I packed cookies that I smeared with hot sauce and lemon juice. I never found out who it was, but after my special lunch disappeared, my regular lunch was never stolen again. Yeah, again, anti-theft measures. If someone is regularly, nicking your stuff, sabotage it, and they will stop. Our next story is, a kid kept kicking my sandcastle, so I built the next one with a rock. So I was about 11 or 12 at the time and on vacation. We were staying at a lake in Alberta, and it was honestly a good time. I built an amazing sandcastle. It had walls, towers, and even a drawbridge made out of driftwood. Plus, I built it on a platform made of rocks, halfway into the lake, like a little island. I mean, come on, I even made decorative trees out of seaweed. Then the teenagers struck. This one kid went and kicked the sandcastle to bits, and even before I got a picture. My next sandcastle, I buried the heaviest, most jagged rock in the base. The teenager went up to it and kicked it again. Let's just say the castle lasted longer than his foot. My castles didn't get knocked down ever again. Now, as a teenager myself, I still vividly remember this event and it makes me laugh. Don't ruin people's work, kids. Edit. By base, I meant the bottom, middle of the castle, not under it. Edit 2. Stop commenting about seaweed. It was probably something else, but I called it seaweed because I don't know any other water plants besides maybe kelp. Yeah, once again, this is justified. Guy's kind of being a punk, a jerk, he's knocking over your sandcastles. Make him never do it again, by putting a rock in the middle. I don't see anything wrong with that. Onion Rings Forever commented, "My siblings and I used to build jellyfish castles because of this exact kind of situation. They'd all wash up on the beach, and we would pile them up and cover it with sand and shells so it looked beautiful. Something about putting in effort made it more likely for people to want to destroy it, and when they jumped on it, they got covered in rotting dead jellyfish up to the knees." Hottest Month 8423 replied, "That's a first. For a time, I thought you were calling dribble castles by another name because your hand kind of looks like a jellyfish when you're doing the dripping. Never been anywhere jellyfish were native, just zebra mussels." Our next story is Revenge of a Brother-in-Law. My brother-in-law is annoying and comes off at times as condescending, which I think is due to being insecure, so I hold my tongue often. A while back, my wife and I visited her sister and him for a long weekend. While he was at work, police officer, she complained about these chores he hasn't done and kids' furniture and toys not assembled, etc. My wife offered for me to take care of some of it, which I gladly jumped on. The furniture and toys took me under an hour. I'm a woodworker that makes furniture. And of course, I had to comment on his anemic collection of useless tools. After that, I went into their garage and broke down and tied up an almost packed garage of cardboard boxes. Noticed some kitchen cabinet doors were misaligned. Those got adjusted too, and for the icing on the cake, it snowed a few days prior to us arriving. He neglected to shovel, so I shoveled, even cleaning up the hard, packed snow ice in the driveway from him driving over it for a few days. For the rest of the weekend, I was a rock star, and he had to hear it from his wife that everything he procrastinated on for months took me half a day. I pick and choose my battles wisely with my brother-in-law, as we're both in it for the long term, so my strategy has always been the subtle revenge. Yeah, this is a low-key flex for sure, and it kind of puts down the laziness aspect of brother-in-law. Good, healthy competition, but also productive because work got done. Wayward Historian 667 replied, "I like this one. Petty but helpful. This is the kind of revenge where the other couple are happy and the revenge recipient can't complain without looking like a chump." Our next story is, "My boyfriend ate all the pulled pork, so I finished his favorite biscuits." So my fiance can be a little unthinking when it comes to food. He comes from a family where the policy was first come, first serve, and everyone is a glutton. So if you want to have your share, you have to be quick about it. I already had to set a very firm rule about not eating my half of the chocolate bars, and he's usually good about replacing the chocolate anyway. My family is the exact opposite. A single chocolate bar could last me up to a month, for example, and my parents always made sure that everyone got their fair share of any treats. This is for context, so you understand that my boyfriend isn't doing this maliciously. My mom had brought us a tub of pulled pork from a specialty, expensive butcher shop, and I had a little bit for dinner, way less than my allotted half. Then my boyfriend had his dinner. We ate at different times last night. I had to go out, and ate all the pulled pork in the tub. I wanted to have some for lunch today, but none remained. And pulled pork in my country isn't a common food. Usually, you only find it in American-style burger restaurants, so it's not like I could go in any random supermarket and get some. I was so bummed, so for breakfast, I finished the bag of chocolate biscuits that he loves. There weren't many left, just enough for one person. He apologized and promised to check with me if I had my half of any treat we have at home before finishing it. He also said he deserved my petty revenge. Edit. Can everyone please stop insulting my fiancé? He doesn't do this constantly. This is one of maybe 3 instances in a 13-year relationship. Stop telling me not to marry him or that he's a jerk. We're all inconsiderate from time to time. We're all human, and sometimes we just don't think and do stupid stuff. It wasn't malicious, and he apologized. His apology was genuine, and I know he's genuinely sorry about leaving me without the ever-precious pulled pork. Edit 2. Because apparently y'all aren't reading to the end to where edit 1 is, stop assuming you know anything other than this tiny snippet of my life. You literally know nothing about my fiance other than a couple of times in 13 years he ate some chocolate and some pulled pork. Just stop. It was a low-stake, silly drama in a solid, long-lasting relationship. Have the decency to trust me when I say there's nothing malicious about his actions and that you're making a mountain out of it. Seriously. Alright, seems like OP is really sensitive about this one, so I am not going to comment. Let's just jump straight down into some of the other comments. Important Art 4892 replied, "We saw this kind of behavior with my sister and her husband. Apparently, the husband was raised in a family where you had to eat as much as possible and get all the good stuff before anybody else could. I witnessed them actually almost pushing elderly relatives out of the way in order to get to the shrimp that was piled high on the Christmas buffet table. Fortunately, the hostess said to them, 'At my house, we let our elders go through the buffet line first.' My sister and husband looked like somebody just smacked them with a 2x4. It was great. We no longer are friendly with my sister and her husband for just so many reasons. But this one particular instance to me was really appalling." Godzilla Tomatillo replied, "My sister-in-law has a whole mess of kids, mostly boys. I've had to whisper to my kids to get in line early because none of them feel any qualms about piling their plate high to empty a dish, no matter how many family members are behind them in line. And they're all adults now." Our next story is, "I'm not replacing my TV on purpose." So basically, my mom left me a house when she moved away. She moved back, and we agreed to have her move back into the house to save money for a future move. However, she took over the living room every night, which is the only place I can relax after my children go to bed. My son, 2.5 years old, sleeps in our room, so I can't watch TV in there after he's asleep. I had previously asked if she could just let me have a night or two to myself to relax in silence since my office is out there as well, or just to watch a movie. My problem was solved. My son threw a toy car at the TV, not on purpose. He throws things when he gets excited, and it just happened to hit the TV, and left a huge mark on it. The thing is, I told her I can't afford to replace it. I actually can replace it, but the busted bit just doesn't bother me, so I'm not replacing it on purpose. My mom doesn't want to watch TV on it now and just watches TV in her own room. She has a 60-inch TV in there and just refused to use it before, so it's not like I'm being cruel. Is it petty? Maybe, but I see it as a win-win. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of ridiculous. Mom needs to go in her room and watch TV, and, hopefully when you inevitably replace or fix that TV, she doesn't try to come back out. But nah, this is all right. Past Association replied, "Nah, she should be glad you agreed to helping her save money for the future by having her stay. You're entitled to relax after little one is in bed. I'd say best petty move." And Opie replied to this, "To be fair to her, we're all saving up for a move to different states, and the house is still in her name. Despite me paying for it for 5+ years and making lots of renovations, it feels like a drop in the bucket on a 30-year mortgage." Our next story is, boss uses wrong name over a year despite being corrected many times. Should we even bother anymore? Boss has been calling my coworker Katie as Kayla for over a year now. We've corrected him so many times, but his own imagination trumps over the truth. When it comes time for Katie's promotion, he actually wrote the promotion letter and corporate announcement as Kayla. Petty revenge time. Katie signed all the documents as Kayla, and payroll had to inform my boss that such a person doesn't exist. Katie told payroll that my boss has been insisting on this new name this whole year. The whole company knows and is extremely embarrassing. I don't know if he learned his lesson though. Yeah, so as someone that's been called Brandon my whole life, my name is Brendan, by the way, I can totally relate to this, and sometimes petty corrections like this are necessary for our own peace of mind, those of us whose names constantly get confused with other names. London is my heart replied, "People call me something besides what I've told them, then I start calling them the wrong name too. It gets their attention and shows them how it feels." Our next story is hot sauced legs. For context, I was abused as a kid and spent most of my time in books to cope with that. My mother was the worst of my abusers. My younger brother is typically a prankster, while I was the quiet book nerd. Because of the reading, I came across a prank in a book that I needed to try. In the book, the boys took a couple of foil ketchup packets, folded them gently in half, and delicately placed them under the toilet seat. I didn't have any ketchup packets, but you know what I did have? Hot sauce packets. I set the trap and laid in wait. The universe provides, and my mother was the next person to sit on that toilet. The following scream that issued forth was unearthly, blood-curdling. My entire family went running toward the bathroom, where my mother was standing. Backs of her legs, pants, undies, everything were coated in a generous helping of hot sauce. In the next few moments, the capsaicin also activated and started lighting, burning the skin on the back of her legs. My brother's name roared forth from her lips, and he was intent on taking the credit because he never could have come up with something so clever. I stood taller and said, "It was me. I pulled the prank." Everyone stopped and was silent. I could see the rage in my mother's eyes, the sauce dripping down her. My father's eyes laughing, but valiantly trying to school his features. My brother, a kicked puppy because he hadn't had the idea. Then my mother, through clenched teeth, says, "And just where did you get that idea?" "A book." I turned on my heel and walked away, head held high. I don't remember much after that, but it was totally worth it. Yeah, we need a sequel, need an aftermath to know what happened, because I have a feeling that Mom didn't just let this one slide. Wondering Me replied, "I just want to understand. You caused pain to your abusive mom. Totally get it, totally justified. Your brother tries to take credit, but you take it instead. Would that not be a super bad idea, with the abuse and all? And your dad is so chill with this, he's trying not to laugh despite his wife being in pain and one of his kids about to get abused more?" And OP replied to this, "Like I said, don't really remember what came after, but totally worth it because I remember the petty revenge for being abused. I was a teen at this point anyway, knew I was gonna get it, so rebelled a bit. It's pretty common in abused kids. Anyway, yes, my brother tried to take the credit, because like I posted in the first paragraph, he's the prankster of the family. I didn't pull pranks or revenge on anyone. I pulled this from a book and was incredibly proud, so of course I took my own credit. This is all laid out very clearly. Not sure what left there is to understand?" Our next story is, Neighbor dishes out heck, receives it, paid back with interest. Been living next to R for 20 years. First, it started with me coming home to find he had hooked up an extension cord to one of my exterior outlets and was stealing my electricity. I have a friend who's an electrician, so after the cord was unhooked before I could call the cops on him, I had my electrician pal come over and wire up that receptacle to 240 volts. I never heard any smoke or loud pops/zaps, but I hope he had been stealing my electricity to power something really, really expensive. He never plugged an extension cord into any of my outlets again. He also has frequent, weird house guests that stay for days or months. I think he lures them over with a free place to stay and possibly drugs and alcohol. We got tired of them wandering over and knocking on our door, always interrupting us and asking for free Wi-Fi. So finally, we set up a fake open Wi-Fi network that looks like free Wi-Fi, but when you try to connect to the internet, you get redirected and you can only view the infamous "never gonna give you up" music video, but nothing else. So you basically get rickrolled. We have a photo of the singer of that video in a frame with LED lights behind his eyes, and when someone tries to access it, the eyes light up, so we know when they're doing it. The Rickroll fake Wi-Fi network seems to have stopped the weird people showing up asking to use our Wi-Fi. He also used to cut through the back part of my yard all the time, and one time his dog ran into our yard and attacked my husband while we were doing yard work. So animal control got an immediate call, and he had to fence in his backyard, which he did a horrible job on, and several times his dog has gotten loose, and I caught him waltzing through my backyard, walking after like it was no issue. Last year, I expanded our chain link fence all the way out to the property line, so he hasn't cut through our yard anymore, and his dog is better contained. I had built a shed back there and was tired of that being outside the fence anyway. I got a survey and found his bushes were encroaching on my property by quite a large area, so those got trimmed back too. I also put up privacy slats on the fence, and I don't know why that bothered him so much, but after living for years with his ugly broken down Bronco parked on his lawn and overhanging the property line in the front, I'm totally at peace with him being ticked off by my new fence while I get the full use of my property now. I also had the new fence expansion put in with a 3 to 4 inch gap at the bottom, and our property is raised above his. For some reason, when these houses were built, his is dug down by about 4 to 5 feet, so as his invasive, junk-diseased elm tree drops all manner of leaves, dead, diseased branches and seeds in my yard, rather than quietly pick it all up like I used to, I just pull up my leaf blower and blow it all under the fence and back into his yard. I xeriscape my yard, no lawn, and some years back when I was trimming back my large perennials, the wind picked up some of the trimmings and they blew onto his lawn. I found them all thrown unceremoniously up onto my porch. I think of this and smile every time I return all the leaves, dead branches, and elm seeds from his tree, and I blow them right onto his lawn. Larger branches that I used to put through our big chipper shredder? Nope. Tossed over the fence and on top of his lawn for him to deal with. And he never trims that tree. It's very large and mostly dead and drops a lot of dead branches constantly. He also burns his fireplace in the summer and burns his trash rather than pay for trash service, which smells horrible and always gives me migraines. Yesterday, we stained a bunch of wood. The stains are letting off a ton of vapors in the hot weather today, and I have some big, very powerful fans blowing the vapors over in his direction. One of the other neighbors told me he keyed her car once, and when he finally got rid of the Bronco and got himself a shiny new Subaru Impreza, but he was too cheap to pay for full coverage, and some lady broadsided him during a light change, wasn't deemed at fault for the accident, he said, she said, and several weeks later the car came back drivable but mostly smashed, the deployed airbag still kinda hanging down the sides. Karma gets credit for that one though. We got along with everyone else in the neighborhood but this guy. I literally gave away 300 plus pounds of fruit off my trees last year. Peaches, plums, apricots, it was a bumper crop. We've got a snowblower and we help clear sidewalks for a lot of the folks too. And I've given away tons of perennials and loaned out garden tools. We're generally overly helpful to everyone else except R. When it comes to him, I'm a petty babe in total control of herself. He could have had amazing neighbors if he'd been even slightly considerate and been less of a nuisance and not bullied us and stolen from us. Sucks to suck. Edit to add. Thanks for the idea of aiming the chipper shredder exhaust towards his lawn. It's the big one from Harbor Freight Tools, and if I take the bag off, I bet that thing will shoot micro wood particles 10 plus feet easily, and lots of them. I'll save that as the last nuclear option. Thanks as well for the discussion of the trash burning as a health hazard. I close the windows and thankfully have an arsenal of air purifiers I run on full blast when he does it. But he's breathing these fumes up close and personal. Thinking about this, I'm realizing if I can, I should take out a life insurance policy on him so I can outlive him and get paid for doing so. That would be ProRevenge for all the migraines. Also, correction in the first paragraph. Cord wasn't unhooked by me. I would have called the cops immediately if I found it that way. My ex, who I originally bought the house with, unhooked it and told me about it when I got home, so away went my chance for criminal charges, unfortunately, which would have been a better and safer solution than a booby-trapped electrical outlet, which for safety purposes I am not recommending. Yet neighbors can make or break living experiences. Props to OP for being an amazing neighbor. This sounds incredibly annoying and disgusting, just burning trash and all that kind of stuff. Ugh, gross. This is the best way to get back at someone like that. Minflick replied, having lived in apartments most of my life, I've had my fair share of jerk neighbors. Now in a house, and while I've had noise-level obnoxious neighbors, I've never had anybody try to steal power. The most infringement I've had from neighbors was a contractor across the road using my water spigot, but he asked first and dumped his bucket on the other property, not at my house, so I was fine with that. Some people are bottomless pits of nerve, gall, and jerkery. And OP replied to this, yeah, my electrician friend who hotwired the receptacle for me told me that if he plugged anything less than a huge 220-volt dryer in, it would basically go zap, and all the magic smoke would escape, and that item would be forever fried. I hope he plugged in something expensive. And he's cheap and not smart, not the type of person who would use a surge protector. I never heard the zap, so I'll never know what if anything blew up, but he never plugged anything into my house again. We later had that outdoor receptacle removed, and all my others are on camera now, so if he tries that crap again, it's going to be a call from the PD, thefts, trespassing charges, and he'll be paying my utility bill that month. Our next story is, try to hit me? I'll pretend to key your car. I was riding my bike today on a road that's somewhere between a side road and a connecting road. The speed limit is 35, but it barely gets up that fast at the time I was riding on it. I generally follow all traffic laws, ride with a helmet, etc., but I do try to be cognizant and non-obstructive to traffic. Where I enter this road, traffic is usually going about the speed limit or slightly slower. About a mile past that, though, it slows down significantly. It terminates in a busier intersection, so there's usually a long line of cars going about 5 to 10 mph after that. Shortly before reaching the slowed cars, an old lady laid on her horn as she passed me, and passed obnoxiously close too. I could have kicked her car, she was so close. Normally, I just take a place behind a car and follow the flow of traffic to my destination, which is before the intersection. However, the lady was only a few cars ahead, so I rode up to the shoulder to get next to her. I got her attention and held up my keys, and then made it look like I was keying her car. She started to flip out as I flipped her off and rode off into the sunset. I was on an e-bike and she was stuck in traffic, so there was no way she was catching up. I wouldn't actually damage someone's property like that. Who needs that sort of exposure? But I do hope she took some time after that to evaluate her actions. Yeah, this is sweet petty revenge. No reason to actually key the car, but just the impression, the bluff of doing so, I think was enough to kind of shake her up a little bit and make her think, okay, maybe I was a bit of a jerk in this situation. Our next story is, she stole my snack. I swapped it spicy. We've got a snack thief at work. Fridge is shared, so stuff goes missing sometimes, but mine kept vanishing. Always the chips, never the sandwich, never the fruit, just the snack. At first I thought maybe someone grabbed it by mistake, but it kept happening. Same brand, same time of the day, and I'm 99% sure it was one specific coworker who always stayed late and forgot her lunch. So I grabbed a bag of ghost pepper chips, a Pocky, and emptied them into my usual chip bag. Sealed it back up nice and neat, stuck it in my lunchbox like nothing changed. Around 1 p.m., I hear this loud coughing fit in the break room, like full-on choking, water being poured, someone trying not to die. She comes back red-faced, watery eyes, and totally silent. Didn't even look at me, sat at her desk the rest of the day not saying a word. I nearly choked on my food trying not to laugh. Haven't lost a snack since. Okay, so I know these exact ghost pepper chips, the Paqui brand. My coworkers and I used to actually have challenges against each other, like who could eat the most without needing to run to the bathroom or drink water, something like that. These chips are as hot as advertised, like hell's front porch just erupted in your mouth. So this is a great revenge. There's no way to hide that these chips don't affect you. Great job here. Mike2FF replied, worked the night shift at a financial firm for a few years. I would sometimes bring in a frozen Hungry Man type frozen dinner. 3 a.m. I go to heat up my lunch and it's gone. I was like, what? There are only 10 people here overnight and a few of the nicest cleaning ladies ever. Walk the office and I find an IT guy over on the other side of the building eating my meal. When confronted, oh, I didn't know it was anyone's specifics. It didn't magically appear, not a company-provided perk. Made him pay for delivery of a BLT and fries, with delivery charge, was like $30. It was that, or I tell a supervisor about a theft he performed. Anyone who's worked in financials or banking knows most have zero tolerance for people who steal. Chobble replied, what goes through these people's minds? Oh look, there's magical food in the fridge again. One of these days I'll have to send the food fairy a thank you note. I wonder if they're related to the tooth fairy. First, I'll microwave this delicious-looking meal marked donut something. Wonder if that other word is important. I must learn how to read someday. Maybe that's why I can't write. Oh well, it hasn't done me any harm so far. Oh look, there's magical food in the microwave. Wonder how it got there. Our next story is, he kept trying to one-up me at work, so I let him take the job nobody wanted. I worked at a restaurant where we hired this guy who thought he was hot stuff. I was the shift lead, just got a raise, and he couldn't stand it. Ignored my instructions, constantly challenged me, acted like he ran the place. So I casually mentioned a manager role I was considering at a cursed location no one wanted. He applied just to flex and got it by default. Ended up working 120 plus hours a week with garbage pay. No OT while I chilled on easy shifts making bank. Store shut down eventually. He got moved, and I'm still smiling. Small, simple revenge for lack of a better word here. When you sense someone's jealousy, really stoking that fire can often push them to making bad decisions, as is the case here. Our next story is petty revenge for my dad. When I told my dad I was pregnant at 19, he told me I'm just like my sisters and wouldn't get a degree and I was a failure. Well, guess who got a degree in pursuing another? Me. So for Father's Day, I'll be having my degree enlarged for him as a gift. I also will have several pics and enlargements of it for him to stare at when he's taking his fat she in the morning. And the first thing he'll see when he wakes up is my degree, taping it onto the ceiling. My parents have the Last Supper painting in their dining room. My dad sits in front of it, so I'll be putting another one there. And when he misses me, I'll have a mini diploma the size of an ID put in his wallet. Then I'll have my diploma framed on his wall in several locations. I'm an amazing daughter, I know. Since my parents are Jesus lovers, I'll have someone Photoshop Jesus hold on my degree as a Christmas gift. I'll make sure to gift them copies of my degree until they die. Well, as they say, the best way to silence critics, including family members, is to just be successful. So, yeah, your success makes plenty of noise here to me. Congrats on your degree. Best Beast 127 replied, I'm with you. I got into a top college and my parents wouldn't help pay because they said I wouldn't make it through a school of that level and it would be a waste. All the while, they were paying top dollar for my sister to attend and live on campus for mediocre college 10 miles from our home because she got turned down from her first choice, arguably the top university in the country. Well, I kicked butt at college. I went to and got a full scholarship to the university my sister dreamed of going to. I bought my mom a sweatshirt and sticker for her car. That was 20 years ago and it still burns them up. Our next story is the time I got a $400 revenge on an abusive customer. Burner account because even though this was a decade ago, I was 21 working my way through college, I'm not risking any trouble. 10 years ago, I worked at a now defunct restaurant in the Baltimore Harbor. We were a fairly busy restaurant, especially for brunch, but unfortunately, most of our FOH staff was incredibly unreliable. The day was July 5th, which was a Sunday, and we expected to be incredibly busy because it was a holiday weekend. When I showed up, only 3 of our 7 servers, 1 of our 2 bartenders, and half the expected amount of BOH had come into shift. So as you can expect, I was swamped with tables. What was supposed to just be the patio section of 6 tables, I now had the patio and part of the inside, combined 12 tables section. Honestly, it was heck, but I was somehow keeping up with everything. My guests could tell we were understaffed, and most were pretty understanding that I wasn't as attentive as I'd like to be. I think because they saw me running around so much. Anyways, it's towards the end of the shift, and I get a table of 3 gentlemen who, from the jump, seemed like they were going to be pretty needy table. I go over, greet them, and ask if they wanted to start with drinks. They said they need a minute, maybe 3 minutes pass, and I come back, and before I can ask about drinks, they tell me I took too long, and then they ask for my name and tell me it was rude that I didn't introduce myself by name. If I wanted better tips, I should start doing so. For context, for whatever reason, our owner didn't want us introducing ourselves by name, only as their server, but could tell them if they asked. I told them this policy, but happily provided my name. I asked if they wanted to put in some drinks, and they obliged. I ring in the drinks, and about 5 minutes later, they wave me down, and before the drinks are delivered, they tell me they all decided they changed their minds and wanted completely different drinks. I had to run over to our one bartender for the entire restaurant and tell her not to make the drinks, while she was halfway done. She was understandably ticked. I put in the new drinks and then go back to see if they're ready for apps and entrees. They say yes and order. 5 minutes later, a man from the table comes to talk to me while I'm at another table, and they again decide they changed their minds and their orders and wanted to change the appetizers. I had to excuse myself from the other table, flag down the chef, and explain the situation. If you remember, the BOH is also extremely short-staffed, so he's also rightfully furious. Now we have a ticked server, a ticked bartender, and a ticked chef. My service manager calls for hands, and I bring over their appetizers. 5 minutes later, their entrees come out. As I check to see if they have everything and if everything is okay, they tell me it's not. They were upset the entrees came too close to the appetizers, so they want them comped and a round of free drinks for the hassle. I told them I'd speak to my manager. I explained to my manager, and now she's angry too. She goes over to talk to the table, and when she came back, she says to comp one app, but nothing else. The last piece of the puzzle has been collected. Everyone now hates this table. At this point, I've had enough and stayed clear of this table as much as I could, other than to fill waters and pre-bus. Towards the end of the service, one of the men asked me how long I'd been doing this. I told him, and he told me I should quit and find something else to do because I was really bad at it. I just laughed it off, walked away, printed their check, and dropped it off. I had my manager run the card, and I didn't want to go back. After they left, I went to pick up the check, and of course, they stiffed me. They left me $2 on a $130 bill. As I started clearing the rest of the table and the napkins, I saw that this man left his Audi key fob under his napkin. I quickly put it in my pocket to bring to the host when I had time. A few hours later, the host got a call from the guy asking if we had found a key. The host said nothing had turned up yet, but she'd check with your server. Apparently, when she said this, the guest made a comment about how I probably stole it because I looked like the type. As the host told me this, I kind of just lost it internally. I told her I hadn't seen it, and a plan was devised. I proceeded to walk to the back of the restaurant, out the back door, and toss the keys into the Baltimore Harbor. Not my proudest moment, but after all said and done, I think it was well deserved. And man, was it satisfying. Yeah, it sounds like this group of jerks just totally built this upon themselves and had this coming. I don't understand people like this that just roll out of bed and just choose to be pricks for absolutely no reason. Why are you so miserable? When you treat people this way, your key fob getting thrown in the Baltimore Harbor is probably like the least consequential thing that you deserve to have happen to you. Troublemaking B replied, "How small must your Richard be to bully an obviously overworked waitress?" Edit. I stand corrected. At least the BMW driver has a small Richard. Otherwise, why have the key fob for your fancy BMW on the table if you didn't drive there? Tiny Richard flex. Our next story is The Great Wall of Red Bull. Way back in 2011, I got laid off from a publishing company that I had expected to retire from, after working there for about 14-ish years. When I was marched into HR, it was explained to me that my entire department was liquidated, and I wasn't allowed to re-enter the work floor, and all personal effects at my desk would be safely collected and UPS to my house within 24 hours. I was known as the collector dork in the IT department. A feat, I know. And people would give me all sorts of limited edition stuff. Mini statues, Funko Pops, Loot Crate items, etc. Though I never yelled at anyone for messing around at my desk. It was known not to fart around in my work area, because something might inadvertently get broken. And since many things were ultra rare, nobody wanted to take that chance. Honestly, most were just dorky trinkets, but a couple years before, an editor knocked over an old Star Wars BK glass from the 80s and offered to replace it, though I said not to worry about it. When they found it on eBay, it ended up costing them around $50. My favorite thing was a mountain of 16-ounce Red Bull cans, thanks to lots of double shifts and overnight projects. Instead of recycling the roughly 60 to 70 cans, we built a Red Bull wall between me and my neighbor's workstations, stacked in double-sided tape to the desk we shared. And sitting across from this stuffy HR woman, I had an epiphany. Can you guarantee that all the collectibles will be carefully disassembled and packed in those boxes before shipment? I have a lot of rare and fragile items that I'd much rather pack myself. That's not out of the question. Unfortunately, none of the employees who were let go today can go back to their workstations due to the sensitive information in the system. Okay, well, I've been meticulously collecting vintage Red Bull cans over the last 5 years and displaying them between our desks. If one gets bent or damaged while being packed up, I'll need you to find the replacement can on eBay. It would just be a lot easier to pack them myself. Some are worth more than $75 empty. She still refused. Literally 2 days later, I got 32 of 32 UPS boxes, each one the standard moving box size, and each one filled with about 10 meticulously bubble-wrapped Red Bull cans, with miscellaneous desk clutter filling in the gaps, as if they were headed to a museum curation. All of my other desk items were likewise wrapped, and box 1 had an inventory spreadsheet of every item from my desk, down to 9 random Taco Bell sauces. I then made a video of crunching down the cans and dumping the entire box into my condo's recycle dumpster, and CC'd the entire company. I heard from a friend that still worked there that one of the warehouse managers, who I really disliked, spent almost 9 hours wrapping, inventorying, packing, and labeling every item from my desk. The company went bankrupt 2 years later and never came back. I'd like to think I was a part of why, though I know it was from years of mismanagement and a refusal to go digital. Hey, if they do you dirty, the least you can do in retaliation is make things kind of annoying and inconvenient for them. Good on ya. Coder Joe 1 replied, "After getting laid off at one company, I was tasked with shipping my computer equipment back to corporate since I worked from home. I wasn't too unhappy to send them 3 defunct UPSs, each weighing between 20 to 50 pounds, along with an old big screen TV that was going out and a few other pieces of heavy crap I wanted to get rid of. I didn't even package any of it. They paid FedEx to do that." Carbon Apex Seal replied, "Last company I worked for had everyone working at home. Was optional before and after COVID and mandatory during it. To their credit, they shipped everyone a set of home office furniture, electric sit and stand desk, ergo chair, multiple monitors, laptop dock, etc. Big company, lots of rules they had to follow. When retirement came shortly after, they initially asked for it all back. When I queried who was going to come and disassemble and ship the desk, the rules changed, and only the laptop itself had to go back. Keep the rest." Our next story is Mayonnaise Karen. This happened quite a few years ago, but it still makes me laugh. When I was in high school, I worked at a very popular fast food restaurant. I don't care what anyone says about fast food, it's not an easy job. Franchise owners and management made it quite clear that we were easily replaceable. Customers often lost their crap on us over things that were completely out of our control. While I felt like a baller making $10 an hour, looking back, I have no idea how the adults that worked with me were surviving on that kind of paycheck. Shift managers made an extra 50 cents an hour, which to me would not make it worth it, but anyways, my favorite one to work for was named Cindy. She had a pretty hard life, and I was always amazed by how kind she was to everyone, despite how badly she was treated. Cindy took a lot of pride in her work, just an all-around good person. I was in the kitchen and Cindy was taking orders on drive-thru. A woman, Karen, ordered a couple of chicken sandwiches and was already being nasty over the intercom. When she got to the window, she asked Cindy for mayo packets. Cindy explained there is a 20-cent charge for each packet, which, by the way, none of us wanted to charge anyone for packets, but they were counted, so giving you free mayo wasn't worth losing our jobs. Karen threw a tantrum and started berating Cindy, then demanded that we take back the sandwiches and put extra mayo on them so she wouldn't have to pay any extra. I was absolutely delighted. I slathered at least an inch of mayonnaise on each side of those freaking chicken burgers. Just sad I didn't get to watch her bite into it. You know, as someone who's absolutely grossed out by mayonnaise in every capacity, this is just, I was just trying to hold it all in while reading this. So disgusting. Imaginary Yak 6487 replied, LOL, I think everyone should work in one of 3 job areas at least once in their life. Fast food, retail, and a server. I've done 2. I'm a manager for an apartment complex that's low income. 19 years now. I get crap when rent goes up by $5. I don't make the rules. HUD does. Here's their number. Spinner of Yarn replied, don't forget telephone customer service. It was 25 years ago, but I'll remember one call until the day I die. I was working the 800 line for a bank. A guy calls in, he's overdrawn. He accuses me personally of stealing money out of his account. Now, normally I would never say anything back to a customer, but this was so ludicrous I couldn't stop myself. Sir, if I'm going to risk a felony, it's going to be for a whole lot more than $200. To give the guy credit, he did realize that his accusations were totally out of line and he actually apologized. That was the one and only time I ever had a customer apologize for being rude. Ragtev also replied, I worked in a call center and sometimes people literally act like they're speaking to the company as a whole and not an individual. It's really stupid, honestly. Sounds like this guy realized it quickly and pulled himself together, which, if you ask me, is commendable. Wish more people could do that. Our next story is, I acted like a brat and I don't regret it. About 15 years ago, all my friends had either dropped out of college or graduated, and I returned to college and had no friends and felt incredibly lonely. Everyone was younger than me. I reconnected with a girl I used to know, and we suddenly became close friends. We were always together. Since I was a bit shy, I would whisper answers when the professor asked questions, and she would say my answer out loud. Later, I found out she was telling some of her friends that I hadn't managed to finish school, while she had, which was a lie. We were taking the same classes. She claimed she was helping me out because of that. I also realized that whenever we went out, I was the one paying the bill. Even when I didn't eat or drink anything, I somehow ended up paying. The last straw was when she claimed that her bag's zipper was stuck and she couldn't take out her wallet, so I paid again. After that, I cut off contact with her, but I never quite got over it. I felt completely used, especially at a time when I really needed a friend. A few years later, I ran into her at the gym. I was still a broke student, but my mom had moved to the city and was paying for the gym, which was the most expensive and luxurious one in town. We saw each other in the restroom. I had finished my workout, but she was wearing a name badge and clearly looked uncomfortable with me seeing her working there. With a big, exaggerated smile, I approached her confidently, hugged her, and said, "Hey darling, how are you? Are you coming here to work out too? Good for you for starting to exercise. You've gained a lot of weight. You really need it." She almost whispered, "I work here." Well, if she's lying about you behind your back, that's no real friend. She's also extremely cheap, so, this kind of is what it is. Sounds like OP had the last laugh, or at least is currently the one laughing the loudest right now. Our next story is, Psycho Downstairs Neighbor. I've been living in a middle floor apartment. There's 3 floors to the building. For months, I've been hearing screaming and swearing along the lines of, "You C-word, you effing C-word, oh my god, you effing C-word," rarely deviating from the script. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if it was infrequent. We all have bad days. However, my building is a renovated factory building, so the floors and walls aren't particularly soundproof. I've done my best to be a considerate, quiet neighbor. I work long hours and travel often for months at a time, so I only met the apartment next to mine a month ago. However, the neighbor has been at this very consistently, at least 3 times a week for the past couple of months, and I left a polite but anonymous note thinking it was upstairs after the screaming started at 6 a.m. after I had a shift finish at 2 a.m., and they wrote on the same note saying wrong flats. So next time the screaming started, I went out into the communal courtyard and realized it was downstairs. You know what upstairs neighbors are really good at? I returned to my flat and began stomping about, and then put my speaker to face the floor and played a quick burst of black metal. The screaming stopped. He screamed again a couple of hours later, rinse and repeat. Nothing since. Okay, this is funny. I've actually lived in an apartment building, 2nd floor out of 3 before, and the stomping for sure, but like to actually turn a speaker face down into the ground and blast like death metal music, that's absolutely hilarious. Way to represent the 2nd floor, yo. 7-Day Weekend Girl replied, "When this happened to me, I recorded the rant, raised the volume, and played it back at them through the shared heating vent. Silence after that." Our next story is, "Boomer bullied me. Now her inbox is being bullied. Ha 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 ha." I was a young senior carer in a care home, and I met the most outrageously rude and nasty woman who should have retired years ago. She was snappy, cruel, and thought she was the bee's knees. She would talk over my handovers, she would ignore me when I spoke to her, she would leave things a mess for me to tidy, and I had enough. After a stressful shift, dealing with an unexpected death, she came on shift and said the most heinous thing I've heard. I quit. I never went back, and I've not seen her since. A few days after I quit, I was thinking about everything she'd done, and that she was the main reason that I quit, so I thought of the most irritating things I could do to inconvenience her life without her knowing it's me. I settled on signing her email address and phone number up for a load of crap. I signed her up for anti-bullying seminars, new window quotes, gastric bypass surgery quotes, hair extension quotes, she's practically bald, an advert selling puppies, am I a bad person test. Guess what score she had sent to her email address? 10 ways to become a better person, and all the spam stuff I could think of. It made me cackle for days. I still smile when I think about it. Yeah, if you're going to inundate her with these spam emails, you might as well make them relevant to the kind of person you think that she is. Am I a good person test, hair extensions and stuff like that. Petty, but also, in a smart way, a relevant way. Sensitive Rip 8005 replied, "I knew someone who did like this years ago. She worked in a call center and had a caller like that and signed her up for stuff. She also grabbed the subscription cards from random magazines and would subscribe her to them. She threw in Playgirl and some gay ones to boot. This went on for a while until she got tired of doing it. Not sure if they do that now, but back then they'd sent the first magazine and then the bill. They'd just stop if you never paid the bill." Our next story is, "You want to be rude? Fine, hope you like paying for a ton of pencils." This story takes place when I was in 4th grade, so I was almost 10. So my 4th grade teacher, let's call her Dr. S. Yep, she had a doctorate. Dr. S hated me, and didn't have any reason to, as far as I could tell. She would yell at me for almost nothing. She would make me wait outside the classroom while everyone went inside in the morning, and then yell at me for not going in quickly enough, along with many other things. After a couple of months of this, a few weeks before Christmas break, I got tired of it. Luckily, my teacher didn't know that I grew up in a manipulative family, so I'd learned a trick or two. I asked her if I could stay after school and help the janitor clean up the room. She stupidly said yes. Now, I was good friends with the janitors, so I knew what rooms they cleaned and had a general idea of where they would be when cleaning after school. So before the janitor got there, I would take the teacher's pencils from her desk and sharpen them all the way down till they were a stub. It took a good few minutes, but was worth it. I did this till COVID shut down my school in March. I wanted to switch a few keys on her keyboard, but at the time didn't know how without breaking something completely. She bought at least 12 more packs of pencils. I still have no idea how she didn't get me. Even 10-year-old me thought it was obvious and was willing to get caught. I thought if she knew it was me, she would stop. I do not recommend doing this to teachers. They do not get paid enough to deal with this. Dr. S was just a jerk and kinda deserved it. So from the perspective of a 10-year-old, you probably think that you were pulling one over on the teacher, but it sounds more likely than not that Dr. S was fully aware that someone was grinding those pencils down to a nub, but that's neither here nor there. LP is right, don't harass teachers, folks. Our next story is, I took the lids. Many years ago, I had been living with a guy for several years, and I thought things had been going fairly well. Easter rolls around, and he goes to his parents' place a few hours away. I was stuck at home due to work. During the holidays, he gets his mother to call me and break up with me for him, also requesting I move out before he returns in a month. The fact he had his mother do this, and over the phone while he was hours away, yeah, no problem. Somehow, it made things hurt a bit less. We were both adults in our 20s, for the record. I did want to stick it to him, though, without being obvious or completely illegal. I took all the lids to his pots and pans and Tupperware. I left all of the actual containers and pots. Just took every single lid. I don't know why it hit me to do that, and I don't even know why I did it, but years later I still chuckle to myself. Maybe this makes me look like a complete psychopath, but I made peace with my choice years ago. I hope your mommy was able to help you make rice without a lid as well as she handled a breakup for you. Yeah, this is kinda weird. Homeboy needs to grow a little hair on his chest and be a man. Only then will you deserve to have lids on your pots and pans. Bamf1701 replied, "You know, if the guy has his mother break up with you over the phone while he isn't there and then tells you to move out before he gets back, he's got to expect something to be done to the place when he gets back. Missing all the lids is actually one of the least destructive things that could have happened. I do have to applaud you, however. You found a way to get a revenge that was annoying as heck, difficult for him to recover from, yet left him unable to seek recourse from without looking really petty." Our next story is, that 75-year-old building manager. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in residential buildings where I'm at, either a resident or a hired person is responsible for the everyday running of the building. They don't enter apartments. There's always a company involved to make sure about bills, taxes, HR stuff, and some legal advice. But it's the building manager who decides the small stuff and takes the bigger stuff for all residents to decide. No one in their right mind wants to be a BM, so that's mostly left for retired people, who then are exempt from condo fees. This 75-year-old man had been BM for some 20-year-old, until residents got fed up with the poor state of the building. We agreed on rotation, so one day I was elected. The most important issue was to upgrade the electrical system. One day, the electrical engineer calls me to see something. The previous BM had been stealing power from the building since, who knows, basically a thief. I had it all documented, but then I thought, he's 75 years old. Justice is slow, he'll die and we'll never get that money back. There had always been suspicions that he had been bribed by other companies in the past and bought overpriced material, but we couldn't prove. So I chose not to take legal action, but I went on a mission to discredit him, showed all the evidence to residents, who were horrified, told the story to all the doormen on the street, to the owners and waitstaff of the restaurant he frequented, told cashiers at the supermarket, told the lady of the flower stand, told it to the handyman in the neighborhood, told it to his bank manager, also mine, and they all believed me for his long-standing fame as a cheapskate. He lived to be 95, not before trying to steal cable TV from my parents. The only thing I know is that for 20 years he lost all the goodwill he might have had in the neighborhood. Only sullen faces in his direction. No small talk from anyone, not even the doorman who would hold the door for him. Petty, and I'd do it again. You know, regardless of how old you are, when you do things like that, you deserve what's coming to you. Simple as that. Okay, everybody, that's all the time we got for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below. And if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. With all of that said, I will see you next time.